How to buy an abandoned French chateau? This is the question I received the most recently, so I decided to make this video to share with you 4 inspiring stories of castles that were once abandoned but found their new owner who want to save them. And you will see that each of them bought it in a different way. Let's dive in. And the first one I want to speak about is the most recent one. They already created a YouTube channel about that I am pretty sure you already follow. And if it's not the case, I will put a link in the description. This is the Château Poséidon that was found and bought by Damien and Tom, a couple, Canadian couple, who decided to move from Canada to France to restore this chateau who was abandoned for decades. And they decided to buy it. In fact, they bought it in a really interesting way, and I will share with you part of the video I made with them when they just received the key, so you will understand that they use not the traditional method to buy a chateau.
This chateau was not for sale. And by not for sale, I mean the owners bought it in 1985. They don't even live in France right now. And they just kept it like this. I was on the internet looking for the right chateau for us. And I just could not find it. It was either too expensive, or too small, or too big, or too run down. I mean, this is really run down, but I've seen way worse, I'm telling you. Like floors collapsing and stuff like that. So this one was a good in-between of everything. And it's all about compromise when you shop for a chateau. So when I found it, it was on Pinterest and it was under abandoned chateau in France. And I thought it was so beautiful and so charming, and it really looked like a fairy tale chateau. And so I sent the picture to my French agent, and she's very resourceful. I asked her, can you find the owners for me? And maybe we could do a deal. And she did, and they answered 4 months after. From a foreign country. They don't live in France. And we negotiated for 6 months or more until the moment where we were able to seal a deal. And here we are in this chateau that has not been for sale that we bought.
So the story of Damien and Tom is really interesting because in fact they bought a chateau that was not for sale. And I am pretty sure that some of you who are currently looking to buy a chateau in France would be quite curious to know how the agent did it, how she found the owner, how she contacted the owner, and start the discussion to see if he is willing or not to sell it. And after that, the negotiation process with Damien and Tom and the owner, etc., etc. And in fact, I have a method to do that. I don't know if it's exactly how the agent did it, but I have a proven method to find the owner of an abandoned or not castle in France. So if you have a castle in mind and you cannot identify the owner, I can help you with that. So check the link in the description. I just launched a new service about that with a step-by-step process. I don't tell you more here, it's not the topic of the video, but if you are looking to buy an abandoned chateau in France, please check the link in the description. I may help you with that. One last thing about Damien and Tom project is about the price. This is the most common questions I receive on my YouTube videos. How much did they pay for this chateau? I will give you the answer. And in fact, it's publicly available. They share it in the newspaper from Quebec. It's online, so I will share with you the screenshot of the website, which is called Le Journal de Québec. And they paid 500,000 euros for this chateau. So you have an idea of the price of this kind of chateau in France when you buy it and when it's abandoned. At least it gives you an idea. Not about the restoration costs. We will maybe have the occasion to speak about that in a future upcoming video. For the moment, this is not the topic of this video. The second chateau I want to speak about is also a chateau that you may know, Château de Dampierre. I will pass quite quickly on this one because there are a lot of videos available about Antoni and the restoration, but I found it interesting for the ones that don't know the story, how he bought it. This is again an interesting way to buy a chateau, an abandoned chateau, and I let Antoni tell you the story by himself.
About the price of a house, when you want to buy a castle in France, it's not that expensive, meaning like it represents a lot of money for most of the people, but it's not the main part. You can find a house on the market for less than €1 million. And this one, for example, was in an auction. It was a family, the father died 30 years ago, and the heirs were like fighting like very often in this old family because it was more or less the same family for the last 1,000 years. And they were fighting over the house. Some wanted to sell, some didn't want to, and there were like 11 people. And these 11 people were fighting, and they went to court, and the court decided, okay, the house needs to be sold. Then it was an auction. And it was an auction with the house, one lot with the house, and 20 hectares, more or less, and many other lots with like hundreds of hectares of land around. And when we arrived at the auctions, it was not much advertising around it, but when we arrived, it was like a lot of people over there. Then I was like, okay, I'm never gonna get that house. But we arrived and they started with the lands around. It was for agriculture lands. And then it was like 1 million, 2 million, 3 million, and people were getting crazy, putting so much money in these lands. And then it was like the lot number 1, the lot number 2, and the lot number 3 was the house. And then they were giving like the first price. And then I was the first one saying like, okay, me. And then it was a blank and no one bid on top of me. Then actually I was the only one, and 5 minutes later they said, okay, this is for you, sir. And I was like owner of a house like this without even fighting for it. Then that was pretty nice, and I was very happy because at the time the money I had, I didn't have much extra money on the first price they gave. And that's how I became owner of this house for 675,000 euros.
So you see, another way to buy a chateau without passing by the traditional way is the auctions. In France, there are several websites who do that regularly, not for castle especially, but for real estate. So they sell house with auction. And sometimes there is a castle like this is available to sell for a short period of time, and some people can attend to the auction or physically or online also in some cases, and you can buy a chateau like this, and Antoni did it. So this is not so often that you have this kind of sale, maybe 3-4 times per year, but to be aware of this, again, you have to be you have to have a network. To be aware of this, you need to have a network that gives you the information when it's live. In this case, it was Deniel Immobilier, which is a famous real estate, famous. This is a reliable real estate agency in France who are selling chateaux. 2 brothers that I already met, I know them, and we made some video together, and they are very good in what they do. And they inform Antoni Calmon about the sale, because Antoni already contacted them. They had a connection, discussion about the chateau, etc., etc. So if you have a good local network, you can have this kind of information before the other. And in fact, as he said, he was alone for the bidding. He was alone to bid. So it's interesting, in fact. And this is the kind of things that not a lot of people, especially from abroad, knows. And it's interesting. So keep an eye on some website. There is a website called Agora Store. It's in French, I think. And you can find some deals, not only castle, but some historical monuments, and maybe sometimes some good deal to make. The third chateau project I want to share with you is Château de Culan. It's Claude Aguttes who bought it a few months ago. And the way he bought it is also interesting because, in fact, this chateau was not officially listed on a real estate website, but in the network of castle owners, of castle professionals, this was a rumor that this castle was apparently for sale. And Claude Aguttes heard it from another owner of chateau that I know, And he told him, this chateau is maybe for sale, you should try to go and see. And he contacted the owner, asked for a visit, without the goal to buy it, but by curiosity, because he is passionate about castles. He already owned, at this moment, 2 castles, and he wanted to go just to see. And he made the visit. He fell in love with his wife, of course, but he fell in love with the chateau and decided to make an offer to the owner directly on site when he visited. The owner thought about it for 10 minutes and said yes. And he finally bought the chateau just after this very first visit. And he bought it at a very interesting price that I am not authorized to share with you, but it was a good price. This was under 800,000 euro. So this is also an interesting way to find and buy abandoned chateau, is to have, again, a good network of people who are always in this castle field, castle industry, and who have some information. You stay connected, and you will be able to have some interesting potential deal to make with some castles. Because, of course, not all the castles that are for sale are available on the market, are publicly listed. You can find castles that are not officially for sale, but by making the right offer at the right time with the right project, you can convince an owner to sell it. It's possible. This is really possible. So this is another way to buy an abandoned castle in France. And Claude Aguttes, after this, just for the anecdote, but 15 days later, he bought another chateau called La Commanderie, which is not exactly a chateau, but La Commanderie de Celles. And so now he is managing 2 different castles at the same time in 2 different regions. And he's totally crazy in a positive way about castles. And for sure, I will go again there to see the advancement, the progress of the restoration there. And to finish, the fourth one I wanted to speak about is Château de Logent-Pré. Château de Logent-Pré is also an interesting one because, in fact, this chateau was abandoned for a very long time. He is very good looking, even with these roofs that are totally destroyed. He has something really charming and romantic. And in fact, the owner who bought it really recently, a few months ago, they didn't plan and want to buy a chateau because they are agriculture. They are managing farms and products. They are selling some vegetables, etc. But they were contacted by the SAFER. SAFER is a public administration who is managing the lands and the agriculture, etc. in France. And they had this castle that for one moment the owner planned to destroy everything and make some apartments, some buildings on this land. They wanted to destroy it. And finally, SAFER decided to contact the owner because they had the land just next to the castle. They manage the land just next to the chateau for the agricultural purposes. And SAFER contacted the owner and asked them, would you be interested in buying this chateau with some hectares? I don't remember. I think it's 20 hectares of lands. The owner didn't plan to do it, but finally they visited and they also fell in love and decided to buy it. They have no experience in restoration of castles, but they are locals who are really well implanted in the village. They know a lot of people, and they decided to start the restoration project and to create a business. Because with this chateau, as I said, 20 hectares or something like that, and also a lot of some outbuildings that they plan to make a business with chambre d'hôte, meaning bed and breakfasts, and also some events, some place that you can rent for a business meeting or even weddings or stuff like that. And they will restore the chateau while they start with the restoration of the outbuildings. They will open them they will rent them, and with the money they will make from these outbuildings, they will start the restoration of the chateau. They also participate to something that is called the Loto du Patrimoine in France, which is also an initiative launched by Stéphane Bern, which is a public figure in France related to history and monument and heritage sites. And he learns that it's a really interesting thing also. It's like a lottery ticket. You buy a ticket, you scratch it, and you can earn money. But the money you pay to receive this ticket and to participate to the game, to the lottery, this money is used and redistributed to different sites, heritage sites in France that need money to be restored. They are in peril. And you have some emblematic, what they call emblematic sites, one in each region, each year, that are selected by Stéphane Bern and his team, and they receive money, not free money, but almost 500,000 for the emblematic site, but there are also smaller amounts for different type of projects, but they are designated and they will receive this Château of Longchampré that I'm speaking about. They will receive this 500,000 euro or something like that to start the restoration. And this chateau, it's also interesting to know, it's not classified. It's not classified, but they anyway can receive this kind of money to restore from the state, to restore their chateau. So I can also do a video about that, all kind of awards and prizes that you can receive and money you can receive from the state or for foundations or from associations that help private owners to restore, maintain their chateau. So this is also an interesting story of new castle owners who didn't plan to buy a chateau. I hope you liked and you get inspired by these 4 different stories, and maybe you will be the next. If you plan to buy a chateau in the future in France, don't hesitate to contact me and I will see how and if I can help you to do that. Bye.